First of those relates to the Port Gardner storage facility. We're going to get a program update and overview, and I guess I'll start with our Public Works Director, Ryan Sass.
Thank you. Appreciate the time to be with you tonight and share about the program. You've seen numerous project actions come before council regarding the Port Gardner storage facility, and so this is an opportunity for us to dive into a little more detail, just to give you more depth of understanding of what the project is, why we're doing it, and what comes next. So with us tonight, I have Suhail Nasser, our Utilities Engineering Manager, and Zach Brown, Principal Engineer, and he's the project manager for the storage facility. Suhail?
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Ryan. Council members, it's a pleasure to present in front of you. I would like to talk a little bit about the, not only about the PGSF, but about the entire CSO program, just to give you the history as how it started, the genesis of it, and how long we've been struggling with it. And hopefully we're coming to a fruition here at this point. So the program itself started back in 1985 when the state legislature, they passed a very vague statement into state law saying that they amended it to say that the greatest reasonable reduction of combined sewer overflows at the earliest possible date. So two vague things in there. So Department of Ecology, State Department of Ecology adopted that rule and explained and described what is greatest reasonable reduction. And they determined that the greatest reasonable reduction is a control of each outfall, combined sewer outfall, to no more than one event per year. And they also defined the earliest possible date to say, so that it will consider financial impacts of the CSO control plan. Now in 2015, the city was able to modify the first definition for the one event per year to say one event per year, per outfall per year, averaged over 20 years. So if you get an outlier year where you get 2 events, but still over 20-year average, you're still below the 1, then that's not a violation. This is similar to what City of Seattle did before us. So we went to them and we were successful. So currently where we stand, the city has 13 combined sewer outfalls. Before I do that, I'm gonna state a little bit about what's the difference between combined sewer and separated sewer. So I have a map here that I'd like to share with you that shows our combined sewer, which is the white and the green, and the rest of the city, it's all separated. So the combined sewer, which definition of combined sewer, it means sanitary sewer with a single drop of rain or storm water, then that makes it combined sewer, combines this. So the map you have in front of you shows you the area where you have the combined sewer area within the city. And the green blob over there at the northwest corner, that one will become separated when the PGSF comes online. So the benefit of that is that we'll be able to remove all of the storm water from that area contributes into our system in the north. And by doing that, we'll be able to create more capacity in the system. And also we will be able to reduce the amount of flow that goes to the treatment facility for treatment, because this will be done at the PGSF. So currently the city has 13 outfalls, and I'm going to share the location of those outfalls so that you'll have visual representation of where they are. So we have 13 outfalls. We have 7 of them are on the Port Gardner Bay side, and we have 6 on the Snohomish River. Now, don't ask me where's SRO5, SRO6. I have no idea. I've been with the city for 23 years, and I don't know where they are. But we only have 6. the city also has a live stream of those outfalls that's updated its live stream continuously, and it basically shows whenever any of those outfalls has an overflow. What you're looking at is what shows on that live stream, which is available to the public. It's on our website at 9:40 a.m. this morning, and you can see that all of the outfalls except for one were green circles, which means no overflow, and then you have the yellow rectangle, that's PSO6, which shows that it had an overflow over the past 24 hours. I checked this again at 4 o'clock, right before I came here. It's still the same, even though we know that PSO6 had a couple other overflows during that period. Now, this is important because ecology defines an overflow event as an event that has at least 24-hour separation from the previous event. So the PSO6, even though it overflowed 3-4 times today, since there was no 24-hour separation, it's still considered to be one overflow. So that's an important distinction. Otherwise, you could have a storm that you overflow for half an hour and then off for 2 hours and then flow. So that's important to talk about, just to give you an idea of what they are. So now, in 1987, as I said, ecology defined the rule to one event, and the city put together a CSO control plan update back in '87, submitted to ecology, that shows that we would come into compliance within 30 years, so that's by 2017. Ecology approved the plan in 1988. So here, how to get where we are right now. So in '87, we submitted our original CSO control plan. We updated that 7 times in the meantime, back in '93, '96, 2005, 2008, 2013, 2014. Those are very important. The 2014 one is very important, and 2015 and 2020. The reason why 2014 is very important, it just happened right after Kimberly Clark left town. And at that time, we had a plan where we would come into control by 2017 using Bond Street, but that's really, it's more of a statistical compliance. It doesn't really, maybe it fulfills the letter of the law, but doesn't fulfill the spirit of the law. So when Kimberly Clark left town, we saw the opportunity that instead of demolishing the whole site and leaving it, we made sure that the city was able to get their treatment facilities and the deep water outfall. We went into negotiations. Finally, we were able to get we got the deep water outfall within, I think, like in a year or so after 2012. But the facilities themselves, we didn't get them until 2019. So in the meantime, we had a meeting with ecology, and we said, hey, listen, if you give us 10 years to come into compliance, we can do a lot more benefit to the environment than doing it statistically. And we will be able to remove the outflow, the overflows from the near shore, which causes the most damage. That's where you have the beaches, into the deep water outflow. So they liked that idea, and we were able to get that 10-year extension from 2017 to 2027. That was done in the CSO update of 2014, and then we had to report back to them, because at that time we had not secured Kimberly Clark yet. So they asked us to report back to them in 2020 as to the status. So 2020 we came back, we said, yes, we have secured it, this is our plan, and we moved forward. So after we did this in 2015, before we sent that 2020 report, in 2015 they said, okay, this is great, we agree, and we want to make sure it's cast in stone. So we're going to issue an agreed order, not a consent decree, it's an agreed order, which is one step below the consent decree. And the agreed order states that this was signed by Mayor Stephenson in July 22nd, I believe, 2015. And that we must reduce the combined sewer overflow to the 1 event per year, average over 20 years by end of 2027. And it does have penalty clause in there that they may doesn't mean they will, but they may penalize us if we don't make it by $10,000 per day for every failure to comply. And also there's another clause in there that says that the city may not appeal the agreed order. This is final. So it's set in stone. So we got our marching orders. And with that, I'm going to turn it over. We did the study, we turn it over to Zach, and he will finish the presentation.
Evening, everybody. Zach Brown, project manager for this particular project, as well as other project at the water and sewer plant. I've been working on this project since, well, Suhail as well, since late 2019, early 2020, so know quite a bit about this project, the ins and outs. First of all, as Suhail said, there's a lot of 30 years time leading up here, a lot of ins and outs and lots of moving parts. But in 2012, when KC left and we were able to come up with a plan of reusing the existing infrastructure, that's a big win for the city. There's lots of pipes on the site. There's lots of storage, concrete storage tanks on the site, about 8 million gallons worth of concrete storage tanks. And then very importantly, there's a connection to our deep water outfall. So we can go right out to the sound, very deep, very far out, rather than to our near shore. So that was good. What we're essentially going to be doing with that is we're taking this previously an industrial wastewater treatment plant at the KC site. We're going to rehab it, refurbish it, and make it a Port Gardner storage facility. In layman's terms, what are we going to do? We're going to add a big bubble to the pipe, essentially. We're adding 8 million gallons worth of storage to our combined sewer system. And so whenever we have these large storm events that come through that exceeds our capacity, rather than overflowing out to the sound, it'll overflow to this infrastructure. We'll temporarily store it, and then once the storm's gone by and we have capacity back in the conveyance system again, then we'll drain it back to the conveyance system to be pumped up and over the hill to our wastewater treatment plant. In addition, that map that he showed you with the green blob there, that's about 200 acres or so of existing urban stormwater watershed. That's been separated, but right now it still goes eventually back to the combined sewer system. So by purchasing this site, which has a pretty big footprint, has that connection to deep water outfall, we're actually able to take that water, that separated stormwater from that green area, route it to this site, and then basically treat it and discharge it directly to the deep water outfall. So like Suhail says, that doesn't ever go back to combined sewer. Nice silver lining here is that's being funded by ecology grants, all that stormwater stuff. So project goals, first and foremost, is to meet our agreed order. We have to do that, but December 31st, 2027 is coming pretty quickly. We got to do that. That's the main thing. But then we have a few other goals as well. By taking things out of the near-shore outfalls, the untreated stormwater or the combined sewer overflows, those all go to the near shore right now. It's shallow water, it's not as good mixing there. It's not great for water quality. So we will be able to, by taking things and putting into the deep water outfall, we're cleaning up the near shore, so it's improving water quality there. Also, we're reusing a bunch of existing infrastructure, concrete pipes, large diameter, or concrete tanks, large diameter pipes, connection to our deep water outfall. We don't have to build those from scratch, so you have quite a bit of savings there. In doing all this, we're reducing untreated stormwater discharges to the near shore and untreated CSO overflows, and then we're going to be able to provide that regional stormwater treatment. Quick overview of the site. That's the old Kimberly-Clark industrial wastewater treatment plant, now Port Gardner storage facility. Those are all very large diameter and deep concrete basins. It's about 8 million gallons of storage. It was built in 1980. It was really built to last. Those are very thick walls. It's all on concrete piles, so it's not sinking into the sound anytime soon. It was in use until 2012, and then we took it over a few years after that. One thing that is important here is that because this is 8 million gallons, it's already built, we're going to use it all, right? We're going to use about 6.5 million gallons for combined sewer storage and about 1.5 million gallons, so one of those large circular clarifiers there for stormwater, temporary stormwater detention. If we were going to build this from scratch without this all being built, we wouldn't have built it 6.5 to 8 million gallons big. it would have been more around 3 or 4 million gallons. And so what that does, because it's already built and we're able to use that, essentially we're exceeding the requirements of our agreed order. We're improving the water quality that much more. We have that much less untreated CSOs or untreated stormwater going to the sound. So that's a greater reduction, exceeding the requirements of the agreed order, basically. Quick overview of the actual whole program. We have a Port Gardner storage facility combined sewer control program. Don't say that too fast. But essentially the program is more or less 2 large projects. We have the Port Gardner storage facility site, which is that orange area there immediately south of the Navy, between the Navy and the port. And then those lines, the green and blue and red lines, those represent very large diameter stormwater pipelines and combined sewer pipelines. So those pipes themselves, we're calling West Marine View Drive Conveyance Pipe Project. You might have seen a design or a funding ordinance and PSA related design for that. Essentially, those are the 2 sides of the project, conveyance and the site, and everything has to be completed by the end of 2027. And a little bit about project phasing. Project phases are 3 different phases. Phase 1's complete. Phase 1 was looking at early on, 2019, 2020, looking at the whole system, doing engineering analysis of the stormwater and combined sewer system, doing a top to bottom assessment of the Kimberly-Clark site and a facilities plan of how we can change that site to our Port Gardner storage facility. And basically that was complete. We finished up a engineering report in 2021, which was approved by Ecology in early 2022. Phase 2 is going on right now. It's ongoing. It's got 3 separate pieces, 3 separate aspects. On the Port Gardner storage facility site, we have design of that site. We also have a design of the West Marine View Drive conveyance systems. That's ongoing as well. And then we also have select demolition on that Port Gardner storage facility. We didn't need all the electrical, mechanical equipment, a whole bunch of stuff that had been basically sitting since 2012 from Kimberly-Clark. So that was a demolition project that has been ongoing as well. The design for Port Gardner storage facility is wrapped up. We just last week got our bid documents submitted to us for review, so they're under review now. The site demolition is also wrapped up. We've reached substantial completion on October 31st, and we'll achieve final completion by the end of this month. And then the design of the West Marine View Drive conveyance project, that's basically in between 30% and 60% design submittal. So they're about halfway through with the design, and they're estimating that mid-2025 they will wrap up that design. And then phase 3, that's the last phase, and essentially it's construction. It's construction of the site as well as construction of the conveyance system. There's slightly different timing on there. The site construction is quite a bit of moving parts, quite a bit of a longer timelines, about 2.5-year timeline. So we are, like I said, we're reviewing bid docs right now. We anticipate putting out a solicitation for bids in early January. So essentially early 2025 through mid to late 2027 for construction of Port Gardner storage facility. And then slightly about a year later, early 26 through mid to late 2027 for construction of the conveyance pipe project. Conveyance pipe project is being designed as one project, but essentially it's going to be 3 separate projects that are constructed at the same time, so we can have some efficiencies of multiple contractors essentially. Deadline, December 31st, 2027. That is a big deal for everybody. We're aiming for that. Quickly on the financial summary here for the 2 sides of the project. On the left side there you have the Port Gardner storage facility site, and the right side you have conveyance side. Again, we're a little bit farther advanced on the design side, on the PGSF side. So we've have the original funding ordinance way back from 2021, 39.6 million. That included design, demolition, and construction management. You all just saw last week a PSA come through for construction management. That's all wrapped up underneath the funding ordinance, or the existing funding ordinance, I should say. We, as well, last week got our bid doc submittal, which included a revised, pretty much a final engineering estimate for construction, and that's $106 million. So if we put that all together, 133.6 for the site. And in here in the near future, we will be coming back to you all for a revision to the funding ordinance for that construction for the site. On the conveyance side, in 2023, we had a $4.5 million funding ordinance for the design of the conveyance side. There is no demolition on that. It's all only design. So that's what's included in that existing ordinance. As of the 30% design, which is basically preliminary design, we have an estimate of $72 million for total pipeline construction. So altogether, it's 76.5. So maybe about this time next year, we'll be coming back to you all for a funding ordinance revision for that on the conveyance side. And then finally, one more piece on the funding. Basically, how are we funding this? And it's two different tracks of funding. One side is utility rates. The other side, what we mentioned before, is ecology water quality grants. Water quality, so it's solely based on stormwater. That's the part that's being funded by ecology. So we have the agreed order. That's the combined sewer. It doesn't really. The stormwater is kind of a extra icing on the cake, more or less. But what we have, utility rates for the combined sewer side, ecology grants for the stormwater side. Right now, we have a fiscal year 2024 grant that we got a couple years ago or a year and a half ago that covers design. It covers design for both the site, stormwater design for both the site and the conveyance, and that's going well. That we've used maybe 60%, 70% of that right now. As of last month in October, I applied for a fiscal year 26 grant through the same water quality program through ecology. This is for construction of the stormwater elements of the site. Of that $106 million that I mentioned earlier, 16.4 is related to stormwater infrastructure. That has been submitted to ecology for their review and fingers crossed approval for fiscal year 2026. And then give it about another year, and we'll be doing the same thing for construction for the conveyance side. So we'll be doing a fiscal year 2027 construction grant for conveyance side. There's still only about 30-40% planned, so we don't have a final number for that yet. But as of right now, what I've heard thus far is somewhere in the $15 to $20 million range for the stormwater conveyance pipelines. And with that, that's it for now. Any questions from anybody?
Councilmember Schwab.
Yeah, thank you. Question about how are we going to do as far as our compliance by the end of the project and with our CSO? Are we going to be ahead of most cities, or are we going to be? I know our standards continuing to be more restrict. How are we going to compare?
Sure. So good question. Again, we're using a lot bigger tanks than we would if we were going to build it in Greenfield. It wouldn't be 8 million gallons. So we're having a lot more storage volume there on the site that we can actually use, that we are going to use. So whenever our consultants went through the modeling effort, we have a requirement of one overflow per outfall per year. And because we have 8 million gallons that we can use, we're much lower. It's like 0.1. So we're far exceeding the requirements. I don't know how that compares to other cities, but for us, we're far and above meeting the requirement.
Let me add a little bit to it. So the way ecology will evaluate
You're loud, but put
compliance-
on your mic anyway.
Sorry about that. The way ecology would evaluate the requirement is that since now everything is based on a model, so the first 20 years are reported based on the model, and then as every year, and then we are required to monitor yearly basis. So every year we have actual data. 1 year from the model will drop off, will be replaced with the actual year, and then that's the average. And second year, so on and so forth, until all 20 years are gone, then it's all based on actual data. And as far as comparison with other municipalities, there's Bellingham and Seattle and Bremerton have combined sewer in this area that I think we are by far more fortunate than they are, because we do have that much more capacity. And just to give you an indication of that, the value of that added capacity storage, we have another project where we're going to actually build a CSO vault on city property, but we have to build the whole thing. And that's 1.8 million gallons, and the estimate is going to be somewhere around $27, $28 million. So each million gallon, you're talking about $8 to $10 million per million gallon. And here we got 8 million gallons for pretty much, I don't know what was the cost of I don't know how much we paid for the facilities, but it's not even close. So this was really a great opportunity. I mean, it's unfortunate that KC left town, but we tried to make lemonade out of that lemon.
All right. Councilmember Vogel?
I have a couple
Go.
more. Yeah, did we purchase the property at some point then, or could you, I must have missed that, maybe not, I was on council at the time.
Yeah, we acquired the KC site. I think most of the negotiation was in 2018. I think it closed in 2019.
I was looking at the footprint, there's no space for public access at all, correct?
No, there's really not. We also had input from the Naval Station Everett of not wanting any
Not wanting, okay, I just
access
wanted,
there to the water side.
for those watching, I thought I might bring that up. And then, is there, the fire training area is next to the site?
Yeah, the area being discussed for fire training is at the north half of the parking lot that's north of the site. You can probably bring it up here. I don't know if we have a picture. Yeah, there you can kind of see it. I didn't bring a
It's at the
laser
north
pointer.
portion of that parking lot, okay,
Yeah,
great. That's a
Yeah,
good
and
use of.
This piece right here.
Okay. And that north area is being totally reserved. We do have some local stormwater drainage that will go through that area, but other than that, we're not doing any major improvements in that area.
Will it be easy access for their retention water from a drill site to go into this facility?
Yeah.
I know that's-
The
I
access
know
is,
that's an
access
important
is not,
factor.
yeah, access is not changing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
For the benefit.
one more thing I'd like to mention about that one. So when we acquired the property, we made sure that we acquired that parking lot, which is 3 acres, because we were anticipating that moving forward, those rules are getting tighter and tighter for treatment. And we have has it been approved yet? Do we have that, the nutrient removal?
no.
No, I think we are, so anyway, so that area was reserved for if we need to do nutrient removal for that site. Now, with the fire department taking half of it, we can still manage. It's not, we would have loved it to keep the entire site, but we'll still manage to do it with half of it,
I was
hopefully.
just bringing up the benefit of being able to discharge water and keep an environmental sound discharge and retain it and treat it right there. It'd be ideal combination of resources for the city.
Yeah, especially with that deep water outfall right there.
Councilmember Vogel?
I am just being a timekeeper. And so I would like to move on as quickly as possible.
Will do.
Thank you very much, though, for all of this information. And
I did have one or two questions. So it sounds to me like a prime driver of this, I'm trying to make sure this is clear to me and to our community members. A prime driver of this is the enormous variability of storm flows, the stuff, just the need to handle these things. And the way that was handled in the past, especially for stormwater, was discharge into the sound and into the river. So that's the driving goal of this whole thing. And it sounds like there will be some treatment of stormwater at this facility. It won't be exclusively storage, but the only treatment will be of stormwater, not sanitary sewer.
Yes, that's correct. On the site, there'll be a 11,000 square foot regional stormwater treatment system. And so that 200 acres will be flowing into that system, be treated right there, and then a pump station will pump it to the deep water outfall.
Okay. Let's see. And is there, I know in the past in some of these public works programs, we've used things like a progressive design build scheme for doing the contracting. Is that kind of thing anticipated for this project?
No, it's standard design
Traditional.
bid built.
Okay. I think those were the questions we had then. Thank you very much. All right, well, next item on our agenda has to do with the property disposition and covenants for the property at 1301, city-owned property at 1301 Lombard. And I guess we have Special Projects Manager Scott Pattison here, perhaps with a few introductory remarks. For some answers or questions or discussion, we have Chris Collier from the Alliance of Housing Affordability. Scott, do you want to make a few comments and overview?
Sure, thank you, Councilmember Zarlingo. There's been a lot of talk in the last several years about, the missing middle, and we feel that the property located at 1301 Lombard would be a great location for middle housing. As you recall, House Bill 1110 was passed in 2023 that provided the avenue and actually pointed out the shortage of the middle housing in residential neighborhoods. And prior to that, the city council in October of 21 adopted resolution 7700 recognizing the missing middle. Since then, there's, like I said, plenty of discussion about the missing middle up to recently, where the master builders presented you with a demonstration on the missing middle housing, and they didn't take a position on 1301 Lombard, but they pointed in that direction that this would be a great opportunity to move forward with the missing middle. So in addition to that, I think the neighborhood has been very clear about their stance on the use of 1301 Lombard. I know that I was copied on somewhere between 12 and 15 emails, and there's been a handful of people that have attended council meetings and made statements. So going forward, we think that the best use for this would be as described in the property disposition of 16, not to exceed 16 townhomes.
Thank you. And I have made copies of a few things. This is the agenda item cover sheet from a few weeks ago, and it has what we decided as our resolution, and I updated it with the section 2D. So we already know that we are doing townhomes. Seems to me that that's what the resolution was. And we can definitely discuss that. But I also put together some information about just how cities go about selling real property, and different ways that we can make sure that we have affordable housing and affordable home ownership opportunities. And so there's inclusionary zoning, surplus public property, just a few things in here. There's a resolution 7526 that has two different kinds of properties that we sold as the city of Everett, that has some that were public utilities, previously public utility surplus property, and other not public utility, and how that looks. And so I have copies for everybody. So yeah, that's one reason I was a little bit late. Here, how about 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9. I also brought, I didn't forget all of them. I stapled them all together. Some information about the Covenant Home Ownership Act, and that is just one more tool. And it says mine. Thank you for bringing me mine back. That's one more tool that we could use. That's what I've put all of these together as. Thank you. So I want to have this discussion about not only the fact that we're going with 16 townhouse units. That's been decided in the rezone. We're not here to debate that. But what we're here to do is to try to figure out how we can make sure that those 16 townhomes, are built as 16 townhomes and not like 4, or, because this is a maximum. but it's not a minimum. So maybe going back to council with being certain that we're gonna do a minimum of 16 townhomes, with additional covenant stuff added. Previous to 1968, it's in here. And this isn't the whole, this about the Covenant Home Ownership Act piece of paper it's like 11 pages, but I only printed one page out of those 11. There's money from the state to make sure that people that have been racially, covenantly restricted could get some money as first-time home buyers. We have, what I did forget was my binder, spiral bound, not 3-ring, that had some information that is actually in the stuff that I gave you. It's on the page with green, if you got a page with green. Different house bills that we might be able to utilize for the people that might purchase this property, to be able to, we could incentivize grants from House Bill 1501. I know that Chris has a lot of knowledge, Chris Collier has a lot of knowledge about the different House bills that we've put forward. Okay, so that's a real brief spiel about, let's do this in, 15 minutes. Here's that. And you, and Scott, and Chris and David, I suppose. So, any council member here want to bring forward yeah, definitely, Councilmember Vogely, we totally need to make sure we have at least 16 homes.
Well, I think the plan has been 16, and the expectation has been that makes financial sense, the higher density will make financial sense for whoever purchases the property. But a dozen or more pages submitted in the middle of a meeting, I guess I don't think I can responsibly respond to that in a useful way.
Okay, well, we've had a couple weeks and more than a year to think about housing for this property. And so, yes, this
Yeah.
is a lot of information all at once. But it's just like some stuff that we've got here. Yeah, please.
So on I guess I'll just share my point of view as far as the amount of units. I don't know as far as if it's too limited, but I would suggest that we just make it 16. But I don't know if that's too limited for a purchaser or restricted. I mean, that's a suggestion that I've just come up here, because I agree with you that I think 16 is ideal, the minimum, but it sounds like it's the maximum from the market level, so why don't we make it 16 is just a suggestion.
And that actually brings up a question, Scott, you may know, or City Attorney David Hall, in terms of what's practical, what can be done in terms of these covenants. And there's two factors, really. One of them is legality, and practicality is the other one in terms of sales and sale price. Because, of course, the other thing we need to be mindful of is the city's investment in this property and the idea of not only getting housing, but returning funds to the city for other uses, and not stretching out this process because the housing is needed yesterday. But, Scott, do you have any perspective on that?
Yeah, I mean, we did some early real rough drafts on what a layout would look like. And we went with, a square footage and property usage and lot coverage. And 16 seemed to be like a sweet spot, for lack of a better term. Could they build more units? Yes. Could they build a whole bunch of small units? I suppose so. But when we looked at it from a market standpoint, 16 seemed to be the number that made the most financial sense for a developer in return. and for use of that piece of property.
And I guess from that standpoint then, I mean, I know townhomes have been selling very well around here lately. It's certainly a piece of the overall demand for ownership in the city. And I lost my train of thought for beyond that. I'm thinking about variability in that number. What are the pros and cons about if we seek to make that a minimum? Do you see a problem in that in terms of acceptability of potential buyers of the whole property and developers of it?
From my knowledge of development, and I think that 16 is probably a good number. You could probably put, well, I think I'd be careful with what you put as far as not to exceed. But based on, like I said, the early drawings that we did, 16 fit comfortably. There could be some challenges with parking, off-street parking, once you start to exceed that unit count. Because we're not going to rely on the streets, obviously, for parking, and we're going to require 1.5 or 2 per unit. I can't remember what Europe can yell at me. But that's where we'll get into a bind, is if we put too many doors there and we don't have the square footage to accommodate the parking.
We haven't talked, Scott didn't mention that, kind of after this was assigned to committee, we talked internally about kind of the next step to be a council action to approve the request for a solicitation of developers, with the idea that we might receive proposals that were exactly 16 townhouses or maybe a different number. That the developer that responds to that solicitation, the developers might have different proposals related to different kinds of home ownership opportunities. So it does make sense that the direction is probably not like up to 16 or as few as 1. I mean, that's not what you guys meant, I don't think. So maybe that could be something that we could look at the exact language for that, and maybe it's approximately 16. I feel like I saw some draft at some point that said 12 to 16. I don't know where it was, but
Yeah.
that's another concept. Or as Councilmember Vogely said, kind of making it a minimum of some kind. It could be another angle at it, I guess.
Well, there's certainly a sense to that, as long as we aren't getting some downstream difficulties. Let me,
He has like on
Chris Collier.
first, so. You want to go in first, or?
I saw Chris's
Okay.
light go on.
I'll just be brief, just from my perspective, not as a developer myself, but just having met with developers, what they hate the most is very prescriptive covenants, and so I would emphasize the city to consider, the proposal is maximize the use of the space. So 2 perspectives. One is, if thou shalt build exactly 16 townhomes, and the developer says, well, what about 17? Then it just kind of, it would work better. It would be more economical, financially viable for 17. And now you've artificially limited it where they might be able to persuade and show you how it actually makes sense. So I would advise against the city unnecessarily limiting it beyond what's present underneath the zoning. So that's one point. The second point is, think about what the city will want there 30, 40, 50 years from now, and what the city will need there in that time. Because as we talk about these buildings, they're going to be there for at least 50 years. The typical lifespan is at least 50. There's plenty of buildings around that are 100 plus years old. We all know that. So think about the future, not the near term. And I would propose that there are a lot of options for, if we can go over 16 units, parking's getting shot at in the legislature, so that might change, but that's hardly something you want to hang your hat on as you make a decision now. But it would be a shame to limit the amount of people that could live there because we want to preserve parking, not people. And so that's something to consider as we go forward, is which are we going to balance on. Last point, there is some flexibility beyond what was called out in the middle housing bill of duplex to stack flats, which is an option, stack flats. There's also the single room occupancy bill, House Bill 1998, that passed last year, that allows more shared, I believe it's kitchen facilities, so individual unit plumbing, but also shared kitchen facilities, that if a developer said, hey, I want to do that, it's now an option, or maybe it hasn't been put into city code yet. glanced at York, if,
That is in the green box in the stuff that I
right,
sent
so it's
around.
just, it's about whether 1998 has been written into city code and could be utilized yet or not, or if that modification is pending. But in any case, there are options available. They can still be ownership, SROs can still be ownership, but that's where artificially limiting the city right out of the gate of saying 16 townhomes, period, or whatever the number is, townhomes, period. You might find developers could be creative, you might be able to incentivize them. Something that Councilmember Vogely mentioned is House Bill 1406 that's currently sitting in the city's coffers. So there are other options where I would just say, in conclusion, artificial limitation or, prescribed uses, maybe you might find something better than 16 townhomes that you like even more. So balancing the cost, sale price, and affordability of ownership units, so.
It does raise a couple of questions. I guess I need to understand more about stacked flats and the shared kitchens. That sounds like the apartments that were proposed and some built in Ballard a few years ago.
That is partially the option. So stacked flats are not apartments. Stacked flats is just,
No,
one.
I'm saying those are two different things. you
Right, two
mentioned.
totally separate things. Just giving you a
It's like
taste for.
townhouses or stacked ones.
Right.
Yeah, the thing about townhouses is it seems like if you're going to stack that kind of ownership that way, the arrangement is condominiums. And I have worked with and leaned on developers and asked them in great detail about these kinds of things. I don't think we can expect condominium development of any significant magnitude anytime soon. I wish that were different. I used to live in something that was that, and it worked out well in ways that we can't easily duplicate. But I'm trying also to be understanding what things we encourage or what things we aim at if we're considering these other things. But another element that's something that's proposed for here closer to downtown are micro studios. So those have kitchens, but they are smaller. But it sounds like in this case that is smaller yet and without kitchen facilities.
That's under the prescriptions of the SRO bill. That's not required. It's just, all I'm trying to do is say there's a range of options where if the city says townhomes only, you automatically, of course, cut out all of those other options and potential for creativity where if this goes back, if the council, as I read this agreement, gets to decide, have final say on sell or not sell the property, based on, proposals that are received, you can say, well, we as the council want to go with something that will produce more units instead of, if a developer says we can make 20, 25, whatever the number is, fit on the site, then the council has that option to say, we want to go with that one instead of 2 townhomes or something like that. So it's not artificially limiting the creativity of the open marketplace to try and utilize that. And so that's the most important thing where I'd say don't unnecessarily limit yourself. That's all.
And I guess Councilmember Vogely, and then Scott, I had a question for you. Yes, go.
We rezoned it. We have done that. That is what we have done. And so I guess, maybe Yorick could come over to the table if somebody else can't tell me exactly what we rezoned it to, because I keep looking at this particular resolution and it says maximum 16 townhouses. And so I know that we rezoned it because right now it's single family. In the future with the comp plan, it's gonna be a lot. And so this rezone is already limiting ourselves. And so I'm trying to work with you all in this limited, what we have done already. We have said yes to the rezone, and that rezone is York.
Effective. I'm not the rezone, I am planning director, York Stevens Wajda. The rezone, I think, is effective by now. It's been the 15 days plus mayor's signature since the ordinance. It was rezoned to neighborhood business with a 3-floor height limit. Neighborhood business has a density limit, but I think it is out of the range that we're discussing. Maybe it was 1 per 500 square feet or something. So it was, I remember how, it was like 40 plus or something. It would take an apartment building to get to that level. Other than that, there are some kind of design restrictions in there, but most of everything that we're discussing is accommodatable within the zoning.
So it doesn't have to be a maximum of 16. That's just us, that's just the covenant part that we're actually discussing here. So being neighborhood business, it could
But
be
this-
a lot more than that.
Under the zoning, it could be. Practically, I think I agree that it would be difficult to get more than 16 townhouses in a typical arrangement.
Okay.
And then, kind of related to that, then a question I had with respect to the timing on this, because I don't want to delay new housing in Everett. If the process then is to solicit proposals from developers, and then, as Chris had mentioned, then give them the chance to be creative and see what comes back in this, is that a significant difference in terms of the timing? Are we talking about a process that would stretch it way out, or would the developers be relatively prompt on that to give us proposals?
Yeah, that's a question I can't answer. I can't speak on behalf of what developers are doing. I don't know what the market is right now. Yeah, it's a big unknown. Yeah.
Okay.
New legislation effective June 6, 2024. Chris mentioned House Bill 1998 requires certain cities and counties to allow co-living housing on any lot located within an urban growth area. This isn't one of those. Prohibits a city or county from imposing certain regulations on co-living. 1890 allows cities that have created housing authorities to form a joint housing authority without county authorization. House Bill 2375 extends the senior citizen and disabled persons property tax exemption and qualification for deferral programs to one detached accessory dwelling unit. I also don't know what all of these mean. I'm just reading them out loud into the record. And E2SSB 6175 allows cities to establish a retail sales and use tax deferral program for the conversion, and it wouldn't be converted because it's already torn down. And then House Bill 1590 and 1406, which we're already utilizing, for instance, City Fund 171, could maybe be used as an incentive to build affordable and or supportive housing, because possibly the developers that come forward with proposals could get a loan from the city, from Fund 171 or whatever else we're using for 1590 and 1406. So I just want to have a lot of these possibilities out there that we could indeed utilize in this covenant so that we can get some, even what the neighborhood wants. They want homeowners. They don't want high rise. We've already figured that out. And we're getting that stuff. But if we can make it affordable with a covenant, with loan possibilities, with MFTE, which we already have on the books, if we can make sure that we're getting that type of information into the covenant, and it's not just maximum 16 townhouse units not to exceed 3 floors with substantial majority of all roofs pitched at 6 to 12 or greater. I don't even know what that means. Maybe it's 612s. With all windows facing Lombard Avenue being multi-pane. I mean, I think we could really utilize this covenant as we were told we would early on, and as I think that we can. And so why not, it says in C that it's about that time, but that city council can say no, right? Well, why don't we write one before we need to say no? And that would probably make us all look a lot better and feel a lot better, instead of just having them, let us write this covenant, not in the next 3 minutes, but actually take the time to do that, so that we don't have to reject or have Liz talking big, lengthy, when it comes up again. Because I don't like doing that. I would like to create something that is good for us all.
Question, are you specifically speaking to this property or other future projects? Because kind of what you ask, I agree with a lot of it. But it would take some time in a process for, obviously, we're gonna have other properties in the future.
Yeah, I think there definitely should be, yes, for now and for later. I don't think we're gonna get to write a covenant for, all the future properties.
Well, maybe some guidelines. For now, it seems a
Yeah.
little like a very timely project that we don't have the time and the staff at this point, but certainly you bring up a lot of awareness for future types of projects. I appreciate that.
I would just add that the Covenant Homeownership Act and the, there's grants available now for home buyers that qualify. I think it would be very easy to share information with the developer and ask that any prospective homeowner, buyer that's looking to buy one of the units, are aware of this opportunity, because it's a program for home buyers to take advantage of that. I mean, that would be great. There were definitely racially restrictive covenants in North Everett in our history, and throughout the city, actually, but there were some around this area. So that would be something that we could implement regardless of what gets built and who builds it. So, and there's other programs too that
Right.
help first-time home buyers, of course.
I guess just also to, not to, okay, 30 seconds, 20, 10, not to crunch people in whatever you said not to do, Chris. I can't think of the words right now. Stress. But a minimum, we don't want 2 single-family homes there right now. But that could be built with what we have written down as the selling options. Even if it's just because it's rezoned neighborhood business, doesn't mean that they can't put in 2 single-family homes, right? Or am I wrong?
I'll talk, because then David will be like, sweet, I don't have to talk, right? But that's part of what that solicitation process would allow us to choose. So
Okay.
the staff would not choose a proposal that is 2 single-family homes. We would want to comply with that approximately 16 townhouses, middle housing types, whatever, so. And then,
I think from here also, I assume you can make these documents available to the rest of the council, or will do
Yes.
so. So we can pick
I
that
have
up
them
with future
saved on
discussions.
Word.
All right. Well, we've come to the end of our time and hit our 2 agenda items. Thanks, everybody, for attending. This meeting's now adjourned.
Thank you.